Ohio State has had the ability this year to lean on players like Wiiliams and Dallan Hayden during crucial parts of games. Will that formula work this weekend against one of the nation's best defenses? We'll discuss that today right here on Locked On Buckeyes.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Buckeye fans? Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Buckeyes for the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast. It is Tuesday, November 22nd in the year 2022, and today's episode is brought to you by Upside. Download the free Upside app and use promo code LOCKED to get $5 or more cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more. During today's episode, we will discuss one concern I have about Ohio State's offense going into the game this weekend against the team up north. Also, I had a question in the YouTube comment section about who might replace Matt Jones if he's not able to play this weekend. We discussed that and answer that question at the end of today's show. But before we get to any of that, there have been numerous games this year where Wiiliams has needed to be a big player, a big piece of the pie for the Ohio State Buckeyes. Going back to week one, all the way throughout the season, when Wiiliams is out there, there are a lot of times he is doing great things on the football field. This past weekend, when Travion Henderson went down and Wiiliams was not able to play in the game, what happened? We saw Dallan Hayden step up when his number was called and had a career day this past weekend. But that's a little bit different when you're going up against a team like a Maryland or a defense like Notre Dame, which has played better over the past few weeks. Michigan's defense is different. I mean, the numbers tell you one thing, and they give you a great description about how good this run defense is. On the season, the Michigan defense, the run defense, has held 7 opponents to under 100 rushing yards in that game. They have held numerous opponents to under 50 rushing yards in a single game. They held Iowa to 35 yards rushing, Indiana to 19 yards rushing, Michigan State to 37 yards rushing, and then Rutgers to 14. Now, you may say, Jay, those aren't good teams. This is true. But if you're holding an opponent to under 50 yards of rushing in the game, that says a lot about your team and how good you are on the field. Now, granted, against a team that has better running backs, they're giving up over 100 yards. Maryland had 128 when they played the Wolverines. Penn State had 111. This past week against Illinois had 148 on the ground. So, yes, the better teams are able to run the ball. And you might say, Jay, Ohio State has the better running backs. They have the better backfield than those two. Well, we know what Wiiliams is. We know what Travion Henderson is. We're seeing the emergence of Dallan Hayden. It's a little bit different for Michigan this weekend because they can't just pin their ears back and go and stack the box for the run because Ohio State's receivers are a little bit different than anybody else Michigan has played this year. When you have Marvin Harrison Jr. on one side, you have Emeka Egbuka, Julian Fleming, we'll talk more about him in a little bit. You also have Cade Stover, who I think is going to play a big piece of the pie for the offensive passing attack and running game this weekend. Part of me wants to say yes, but you cannot rely on them like you have in previous games where it's just hand the ball off, let them go. Hand the ball off, let them go. If it's Ohio State running the ball only and the Wolverines are able to eliminate the Buckeyes passing attack, I think that goes to the Wolverines. I mentioned about the Wolverines defense and how lethal they are and how good they are nationally. I got 4 categories they're the top 5 of. 3 of them, they're in the top 2. Rushing yards per game, they're giving up 79.5. That's number 2 in the nation. This is Michigan's defense. Number 2 in the nation at points per game. The Wolverines, they're giving up only 11.7 points per game. They're also number 1 of the defense in the nation as far as total yards per game they're giving up. 241.3. and then passing yards per game, they're 5th in the nation, giving up only 161.7. One thing that hurts the Wolverines here is the schedule, the weak schedule they had all season long. Now, you may have said, Jay, you said they have a weak schedule against better opponents. They're giving up more rushing yards. So you might say and think, well, against the Buckeyes, who are better, have a better backfield than Maryland, they actually Littleton and Hemby, outside of what they did against Ohio State, those are two really solid, decent backs. Outside of what they did against Penn State and Illinois, you might say Ohio State's backs are better. Okay, yeah, I think there's an argument to be made. But Michigan played Colorado State, Hawaii, and UConn in their non-conference. Those aren't good football teams. They also have played in the West. They played Iowa, the Big Ten West, that is. They played Iowa, Nebraska, and Illinois. Illinois is the best of the bunch. Iowa might win the Big Ten West. None of them are going to be in contention for the college football playoff. And I don't think any of them are going to be in the top 25 tomorrow when or later today when the CFP rankings come out. So that's a little hindrance for Michigan, is where their schedule does not really prepare them properly for what the Buckeyes are on offense, especially in the running game. But also, does the Buckeyes schedule help them out when it comes to what the Wolverines defense is going to do? These are things we need to think about and talk about. I do think, though, the Buckeyes being 20th in the nation in rushing yards per game at 203.5, they're tied for first in the nation with points per game at 46.5. I do think, though, the Buckeyes have a formula. Not if they just ride and lean on Hayden, Henderson, or Wiiliams. I don't know if that's going to be it, if the Wolverines can overcome and slow down and really make the passing attack of Ohio State a non-threat. But if you use the mixture of the two, there might be times you see 3rd and 3. Forget that screen pass, or forget the counter, or forget anything of C.J. Stroud rolling right. Hand the ball off to Miyan Williams or Dallan Hayden. They can get the job done. And I do think there is a formula for Ohio State if they need to hand the ball off to any of, the two backs, Miyan Williams or Dallan Hayden. I do think there's a formula that the Buckeyes can use those guys in crucial moments to move the ball and to allow the Buckeyes to be victorious in this game. However, this will be the toughest test for either team, the Wolverines or the Buckeyes, especially in the run game. There's an injury situation with the offensive line. Matt Jones, does he play? Does he not play? He's been nursing a bad right ankle for a few weeks now. Ultimately went down in the game against Maryland, and it was visible. It was apparent. He was in pain. It's TBD, to be determined if he's going to play in the game this weekend. But there's still a formula for Ohio State to ride the backs, allow them to tote the rock when they get on the field, to allow Ohio State to be as successful as they can be in the running game this weekend. Will they have success in the passing game? I just mentioned Michigan is only giving up 167 yards through the air. That's 5th in the nation. That's their defense, that is. Tough task. There's some question marks. We'll discuss the pros and cons of this conversation next right here on Locked On Buckeyes. Inflation has us all thinking about different ways to cut back, whether it's driving less, dining out less, or buying less from the grocery store. We can all agree there's nothing fun about less. That's why I started using Upside. Upside is an incredible app for anyone who buys gas, groceries, or dines out. With Upside, I don't have to cut back because I get cash back on every single purchase. To get started, download the free Upside app, use the promo code LOCKED, LOCKED, and get $5 or more cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more. Buying on Upside, check in at the business, pay as usual with a credit or debit card, and get paid. In comparison to credit card rewards or loyalty programs, you can earn 3 times more cash back with Upside. Upside users are earning more than $1 million every week. That's probably why they have a 4.8 star rating on the App Store. Download the free Upside app and use promo code LOCKED to get $5 or more cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more. That's $5 or more cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more using promo code LOCKED. This episode is brought to you by Billiards Plus. Billiards Plus has the best selection of pool tables, game tables, shuffleboard tables, and more, and the best service in Central Ohio. Billiards Plus also can set you up with a brand new top-of-the-line grill that will last for generations. We all know how hard it is with the supply chain issues this year and getting certain things shipped on time. So when it comes to ordering that one big gift for Christmas, check out Billiards Plus and get there early this year. Pick something out and get it shipped in time for Christmas. It is a gift the whole family will enjoy year round. Billiards Plus carries the best pool tables from Brunswick, Ohio, Canada, billiards, and more. Plus, they have top-of-the-line grills that dad, your uncle, or maybe even you will enjoy using even when it's cold outside. They work any time of year. No matter the season, Billiards Plus has you covered for all your indoor and outdoor entertainment needs. Visit their showroom on Dublin Center Drive in Dublin. Check them out at billiards-plus.com. Once again, check them out at billiards-plus.com. Billiards Plus, family owned and operated for generations. Thanks for making Locked On Buckeyes your first listen today. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast, the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. They all can be found at Locked On Sports Today. Available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your fine podcasts. So we have seen recently that there have been some occasional issues with Ohio State's passing game. It's something that we have seen with numerous receivers. As I'm trying to get my headphones to work again, let's just take them off because they're becoming a little bit of a hindrance. But we have seen over the few weeks now, where Julian Fleming has not been a liability, but when he's not able to separate and not able to get open like he was earlier in the year. As the season goes on, I guarantee, with this being the first time in college he has played this much football, he's probably sore a little bit. He's probably maybe having a little injury, maybe an ankle or a toe or foot, something, or maybe an upper body that is not allowing him to get open like he was. Marvin Harrison Jr. continues to play phenomenal football. I have seen him make some amazing plays, some amazing catches, and there are numerous times that I have seen Marvin Harrison Jr. catch a football, and I literally sometimes yell at the TV screen, how does he do that? And with all this in mind, it makes me wonder, there's a formula. There's a way for the Buckeyes to be able to, I won't say lean on the entire game, but lean on in the second half on the running backs. But what if that formula doesn't work? Can C.J. Stroud, Marvin Harrison Jr., and the other players and receivers at Ohio State be reliable in the passing game? On the surface, you might want to say yes. You have Stroud, who is a Heisman Trophy contender. Some might say front runner. You have Marvin Harrison Jr., who is a semifinalist for the Biletnikoff Award, which goes to the best wide receiver in college football. You have Emeka Egbuka, who is able to do some amazing things. And when he gets loose, that bad boy gets loose, and sometimes you can't catch him. This could be the week Julian Fleming puts it all together once again. We have seen him play good football. For some reason, sometimes things just don't go and work the way we want them to week after week after week. There's also a formula. Two more players. One of them is Stroud. One of them is Stover. And when it comes to C.J. Stroud, it's been very clear that for some reason, there are times that when Stroud has to extend the play, when all the guys are open, he tries at times to throw the ball and make passes that he shouldn't make. Everybody knows he shouldn't make the pass, but because he's made some amazing throws previously where he just drops the ball into the bucket, sometimes he might think, hey, I can make that throw all the time. That's not the way this cookie crumbles. You can't do that, especially against Michigan's defense. I mentioned it once. I'll say it again. They're giving up only 161.7 passing yards per game. That's fifth in the country. This is a defense that the Buckeyes, no defense that Ohio State has played has been like this. Yes, Iowa was good, but Iowa's offensive threat was nothing going into the game. Yeah, Michigan has some injuries. Michigan has some things that might hurt them and derail them ultimately. But you got to wonder, if Stroud plays CJ Stroud football, and we have seen him against Penn State, not really being able to throw the ball and move the ball through the air like you want, all of a sudden in the fourth quarter, about the 9-minute mark, stuff clicks and everything goes back to the way you think it's going to go. That's a possibility. I could see a scenario there where CJ Stroud does that and he gets that ball moving in that way. Maybe not so late in the game, but throughout portions of the game, you see the greatness in the ability of CJ Stroud. Also, you have Marvin Harrison Jr., which I have not seen a defense yet. No matter if you're bracketing him straight, if you're man-to-man, if you try to throw different zones at him, it don't matter. He gets open, he catches the ball, arm behind his back. He goes like this, catches the ball that way. I don't know how he does it. The body control is not anything like you would normally see in a college football player, but there's also Cade Stover. Now, there is a thing with the Heisman where you want to have a stage, and people believe the stage of the game allows you to move up in the Heisman conversation, the Heisman race, and all voters and all eyes will be on Columbus, Ohio on Saturday when the Buckeyes and Wolverines play. Remember last year, I'm going to bring up a sour note. When Aiden Hutchinson played the Buckeyes in Michigan's defense, Michigan did what Michigan does, what they did last year. Aiden Hutchinson used that stage. He was already in the Heisman conversation, but that stage was a big stage, and it allowed him to move up in the Heisman conversation to ultimately be a Heisman finalist. The stage matters. And Stroud knows about Harrison Jr. We all know about Ibuka. Julian Fleming can do some great things. Xavier Johnson might be put into the mix. But if Stroud wants to utilize all of his weapons, you have to find a way to allow Cade Stover to be a big piece of the pie. And I'm not saying 2 catches, not even 3 catches. I think he might have to give 5-6 targets to Cade Stover in this game to keep the defense honest. Because if that defense of the Wolverines realizes that Cade Stover is not going to be a big piece of the pie and they don't have to guard him like you think they should, hey, that allows them more people to go and guard Marvin Harrison Jr. I do think the Buckeyes passing attack is going to show some wrinkles, that shows some things that have not shown all year. I do think the Buckeyes passing attack is going to be up to the task to go up against, and actually the Buckeyes offense will be up to the task to go against this defense of the Wolverines. I mentioned earlier, the Wolverines have shown that against different competition, that's not the same way as the Buckeyes. They're going to allow more yards. I mean, that's kind of self-explanatory. There's a scenario where Miyan, Wiiliams, Dallan Hayden, they run the ball. Yes, I'm a guy that believes Dallan Hayden should play both the Trevor and Henderson. Yes, I do believe that. I think he should. I think it's been very clear throughout the season that Dallan Hayden is more productive, consistently more productive than Trevion Henderson. Just want to leave it there. Argue with me, fight me. Leave a comment in the YouTube comment section. I'll go ahead and argue that with you. But that right there is just one thing. Utilizing every weapon the Buckeyes offense has is going to be needed for the Buckeyes. Now, Mozzie Smith, 337-pound nose tackle, is going to try to disrupt the running game of Ohio State. But if you can find a way to neutralize him, even with the play-action pass and different things in a passing game, that's going to help not just the Buckeyes' passing attack, but also the rushing game for the Buckeyes this weekend against the Michigan Wolverines. There's one question I got in the YouTube comment section. It's about Mac Jones and his injury and who might replace him if he cannot go this weekend. There are 2 players in mind. I think there's one that might replace him. Who is it? We will discuss that next right here on Locked On Buckeyes. This episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your #1 source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there. From football to basketball to soccer and esports, BetOnline.net, they have everything you need. They've got you covered. And if you love sports podcasts, you can find those at BetOnline as well. We're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. Head to betonline.net today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. I mentioned it yesterday. I'm going to mention it again today. We are planning to have an episode every day this week trying to work out a crossover with Isaiah Hull of Locked On Wolverines for him to come on the show to get the Michigan side of things, get the Ohio State side of things. Both of us share how we think the game is going to go. That will be later in the week, trying to get my guy Mo Murphy back on the show from the Off the Ball Network. You guys love Mo. I love Mo. So trying to get Mo on for the big week. Also planning on having a post-cast after the conclusion of the game on Saturday. It'll be about an hour after the conclusion of the game. To have some posting responsibilities that will be immediately at the conclusion of the game. But ultimately, you can get me solo and me on another show breaking down and discussing what we witnessed on Saturday in the game against the Wolverines of Michigan. So Matt Jones has been nursing an injury for the past few weeks. It's an ankle injury, lower leg injury, and it's something that has derailed him and actually hampered him in a few games this year. It's hindered him in a few games this year. Most notably, recently, outside of the game against Maryland, there was a game against, who was it? Indiana, Northwestern. I forget it. I know Indiana for sure, and Northwestern. The pushing off of the things, he was struggling to get a push off there. Ultimately, he went down in the game this past weekend against Maryland. And it's a big, big deal when you have a starting right tackle, starting right guard, who goes down with an injury. Now, the importance of the game might actually be something that pushes Matt Jones to attempt to play. Also, knowing that your team is undefeated, also knowing that you are going to be somebody that your team is going to possibly need to lean on in this moment to run the ball, because that right side of the line between who is it? DeJuan Jones and Matt Jones, the law firm of Jones and Jones, you might want to call it. They have been a big piece, a huge piece for Ohio State this year when they need to run the ball to the right side. Those guys move people. When Jones went down against Maryland, Enoch Vamahi also was the replacement for Mr. Matt Jones. Vamahi this wasn't the first time Vamahi has had to come in and replace Matt Jones when Jones went down with an injury. It's happened previously as well. But there's also a thought, will it also be Josh Fryer? Now, by size, I'm working for my computer to load, and it's moving a little bit slower. Enoch Vamahi is a pretty hefty human being as well, just like Matt Jones. Vamahi stands at 6'4", 310 pounds. Joshua Fryer stands at 6'6", 320. Now, just by that alone, you might say, Jay, 6'4" versus 6'6", that might be a reason for the Buckeyes to go with Vamahi. Remember last year we had the tackles playing guard, and it was not a great formula at all. And ultimately, when you had to shuffle things up and move things around, Fair Mumford, when he had to go back out the tackle in the game, didn't really look good. My first thought is hopefully Matt Jones is healthy enough to play this weekend. Second thought is, even though Josh Fryer has had more snaps and had more run, even at a position where he's not most natural at tight end in a lineman, in an eligible receiver number in 41, I'm riding with Enoch Vamahi. If Josh Fryer was the guy that you would want to put in there at that time, you find a way, maybe even call it a timeout after a media thing to switch the jersey from 41 to 70 so that you go in and ride with Josh Fryer. I understand the Buckeyes might still want to go with the heavy set and allow Josh Fryer to be that guy. No. I ride with Enoch Vamahi. There's a reason why when Matt Jones comes out, and no matter what game it is, Vamahi is his replacement. That's key. Now, of course, the first thought is you want him to be healthy. You do want that to happen. I don't see a scenario where you put Fryer at tackle, left tackle, you put Paris Johnson Jr. at right guard. That's also a formula, but I do think you need Paris Johnson Jr. at left tackle in this game. I don't see a scenario where you put Fryer at right tackle, you put DeJuan Jones at left tackle, and all of a sudden you put Paris Johnson Jr. at right guard. That's too much shuffling, too much moving. I don't see that happening. That's a wrinkle you might see. But if you start that way, if you do it a little too much in the middle of the game, it could be a formula and recipe for disaster for Ohio State in this game. The first go-to is Enoch Vamahi. And then you might see Josh Fryer go to right guard. You could see shuffling to Paris Johnson Jr. go to right guard, DeJuan Jones go to left tackle, Josh Fryer go to right tackle. Those are scenarios. The other ones I don't really think could happen because footwork of things, it's really tricky going from right side to the left side, inside guard to outside tackle. Vermont is the first choice I think the Buckeyes should roll with in replacing Matt Jones if he is not healthy enough to play in the game this week. And not here on a Tuesday. Hope you guys are having fun preparing to spend time with your family and friends this weekend. Thanksgiving Thursday. A lot of college football all week long. And we're going to be right here every day getting you ready for the game this weekend against those pesky Wolverines. You can follow me on Twitter at jstevens07. You can send all of your emails to jstevens317 at gmail.com. Thanks for making Locked On Buckeyes your first listen today. For your second listen today, check out Locked On Sports Today. From the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports Today, available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get your fine podcast.